So, welcome all. My name's Lorraine Copes. I am the founder of Be Inclusive Hospitality, and I want to welcome you to Thursday Night Takeaway, which is a fortnightly series where I have a pretty informal chat with some of the phenomenal leaders within the hospitality industry. And today I am joined by a guest who I'm going to hand over for him to introduce himself. So, Ben, tell me who you are, what you do. We'll start there, maybe.
Hi Lorraine. So I'm Ben Chapman. I'm the co-founder of Super 8 Restaurants. So we have Smoking Goat, Kiln, Brat, and by the time this goes out, a new restaurant called Mountain will have been announced.
Nice.
All in central London, Soho, and Shoreditch. If you're not aware, Brat is a northern Spanish barbecue with Thomas Parry being the chef. Kiln and Smoking Goat are both Thai restaurants with a strong sense of quality of ingredient and regional recipes. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And the new restaurant, how will that differ, if at all?
So similar to Brat, it's inspired by the Spanish cuisine called Mari Montaña, which is food from the hillsides and seas, and is really a collection of recipes that Thomas has been eating kind of from the vineyards through to down on the fishermen's bars from Catalonia across to Mallorca. So it's fun. Yeah, like Brat, but with some of that sort of Soho buzz and energy that you get in Soho on a Friday night.
Okay.
We're excited about it at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, nice. Super. Well, exciting times. And tell me about firstly, your length of time within hospitality and what your entry point into the sector was.
Right. So, well, Super 8 started in 2014, so 9 years ago. And that was my first time really being properly involved in cooking and hospitality proper. Before that, though, I'd worked as a barman for pretty much my whole life. I think my first job was a bar back at a club called Bamboo in Birmingham, and
I know it.
pretty much been in and or around bars or restaurants ever since.
Mm-hmm.
I used to do some work designing restaurants for people, and also doing like graphic design. And sometimes I'd do menus, all the way through to sometimes I'd be doing like gig posters. So it was pretty, yeah, it was a real sort of meandering path until we started Smoking Goat on Denmark Street, which was originally a sort of pop up in a. We had a short lease. I think we had a 6-month lease on a little bar at Denmark Street, which is really sort of evocative old London street, and didn't really have any money, but three years later we were still there, and we'd sort of bit by bit managed to turn it into a restaurant of sorts, yeah. And that was really the step, the launch.
And tell me this though, what was that? When was that deciding moment that you were going to do this? Like you're going to take the leap? Was there, something that happened, for you personally, or was it just like a calling? What was it?
So I think the idea of having, so first of all, I felt quite strongly that I was going to need a career in order to move myself forward from what I was doing. I was having fun, but I wasn't, there was nothing really where I could say, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I was aware that I would want to be able to, provide and look after my family, and I suppose just a general sense of ambition was there looking back on it. I think so that led me to really wanting to have my own business. I think the other side of that though was, I think creatively I wanted to have my own business, because I'd always worked in small independent type
Right.
operation, and
Mm.
so I'd had a sort of an impromptu mentorship from the owners of those businesses, and I
Right.
suppose I always just foresaw myself doing something similar to that, not necessarily with any kind of sense of scale um, or it wasn't necessarily a hugely ambitious idea. It was more along the lines
Mm.
of, well, what these guys do, I'll do the similar thing. Which, yeah, yeah.
Makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, nice. And tell me, sort of from the outside looking in versus when you actually arrived in hospitality, what
Mm.
were some of the sort of biggest surprises to you?
Well, it was a bit of a baptism of fire because I didn't really know how to cook professionally. Um,
Mm.
I'd sort of worked on a few um, Thai Thai barbecue recipes um, at a pub I was involved in Homerton, just using the courtyard out the back with the barbecue.
Okay.
That was all I had really. So figuring out pretty quickly how food needs to be prepared for service was a bit of a baptism of fire. And I always joke
Mhm.
with the team, you can't cook lamb shoulders to order. You have to get ahead, which was something I learned pretty quickly early on. With checks start coming in, you're like, oh wow, okay, prep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so there's that. I was fortunate though, Lorraine, in that my business partner Brian Hannon is extremely
Mm.
experienced in hospitality. So
Mm.
whilst he didn't have any kitchen experience, and I had to sort of figure that out, the the machinations of opening a restaurant, i.e., having all the bits in place, he'd done
Yeah.
that times. So
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
so it's sort of just on his coattails, really. That's it. Yeah,
Makes sense. Helped.
and would always advise people to consider the elements of what they're good at and what they're bad at, and then surround themselves with people who is a good sort of jigsaw in the gaps.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. And you've referred to cooking twice. So
Yeah.
how involved were you in the kitchen initially, and when did that kind of come to an end, or has it?
So yeah, so when we first opened Smoking Goat, I obviously wrote the menu along with well, I wrote the menu, and then we had a lovely guy called Seb who joined us as head chef, and I was a full-time CDP. Um,
Okay.
and then over the years, um, by the time we opened Kiln, we opened that with myself as head chef. Um,
All right.
yeah, um, albeit again, I'd always made sure I'd had a very strong team around me in the areas that I wasn't going to be fantastic at.
Mhm.
Um, and now I'm not in service, regrettably, but I think it's fortunate. I think everyone prefers it that way. um, but still, it, most of my role is focused on the specificity of food or drink. So let's
Mm.
work through this recipe together. Let's look at this
Yeah.
ingredient together. Is this good? Let's taste it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I think I'm better at than running a service. So there we go.
Okay.
Mm,
Sense. That makes sense. Leaning into your strength. And
mm,
kind of moving on then in terms of the food specifically, and you have obviously a growing portfolio of restaurants with quite diverse cuisines. I'm
mm.
interested in what really spawned that on, and just your thoughts on like sharing food culture through food and what that
Yeah,
means to you, not only as an individual but also as a business owner.
yeah. Excuse me. So I mean, as a chef, my sort of career's work has been around learning, trying to learn to cook Thai food. Um, and that's really what I foresee myself doing forevermore. And in my view, that's more than a big enough subject to fill an entire life's work with. Every time I go to Thailand, and I was there with the team in January,
Mm.
and as you know, as we learn a little bit more, we just find out how little we know, and it's something I'm acutely conscious of. With your question around, you know, how is culture carried through these recipes? They are really carried through the recipes, aren't they? They need to be cooked in order for those messages to stay alive, and in some instances, that's very much, you know, some of the recipes we're working with are specific to quite small regions of Thailand, or you know, minority groups of people. So it's important that we express where the recipe is from, and you know, try to cook it in a way which is respectful. Yeah. It is the case though, you know, I will always be cooking food from another culture to mine. So you know, one of the things that I've found that I've so enriching about doing this is that it teaches me more about the food and ingredients we have here. It's by way of reflecting upon the differences. Yeah, so it's an ongoing project and something that I hugely enjoy. I think, yeah, it's a real point of interest, and being in conversation on some of these topics with some of the people that I hugely admire and look up to in Thailand is extremely rewarding. And also teaching our team, you know, within the kitchen at either of the restaurants, you'll have people who are super up to date, super knowledgeable on able to retrace and express the cultural history of these recipes, and you have people that are really at the beginning of that journey. And so seeing our people being brought along with that level of knowledge, gaining some of the language that you will need to be able to do this well, some of the touch and feel and sensibility, is extremely rewarding as well. Yeah.
Nice. Do you still cook a lot at home, or do you still find yourself gravitating towards the kitchen?
Yeah. I do, yeah. Particularly now that I'm not in service in the evenings. Yeah, quite like cooking at home.
Makes
Really
sense. So,
makes the house feel like a home, doesn't it? It's...
yeah, no, for sure. And what I was going to say is, you don't sound like a Brummie to me. Obviously, I'm a Brummie, but when you just what you just said, then you sounded like a Brummie when you said "I do." Yeah,
Right.
that's when I heard it. So,
Yeah, well, it's sneaks in sometimes. Yeah, yeah.
how long have you been in London for?
I moved when I was 18, so 20 years ago. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, so you sounded like a Brummie then too. But anyway,
Okay.
I think maybe you're creeping out because you're speaking to me,
Yeah, it might
and
be.
yeah, it might be that. So that's super interesting to hear and learn just about your kind of love affair with Thai food, really, which is wonderful. I love Thai food too. Another question for you then. So, if you summarize your journey in hospitality as a sector to date,
Yeah.
if you could like pick a sentence or a couple of words, how would you summarize the journey to date?
I think lucky, very lucky, fortunate with the people that I've worked with and been around, and yeah, it's you look back on things, the sliding door nature of how events occurred, you know, from a little pop up to where the things have grown to. Just really lucky with some of the key people that I met and helped me along the way, really, to be honest. And it just, kind of feel as though it sort of owe a duty to these fortunate events to carry it forward and do a decent job with the occasion. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. And also, when you look back and reflect on your journey, what have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned?
So by a distance, the biggest lesson that I've learned is at the first Smoking Goat on Denmark Street. I remember setting up, was it one afternoon, because we'd sort of had a bit of a wave of kind of hype and reviews, and they'd been and gone, and the restaurant wasn't very busy really. And I remember setting up the grill for lunch with all the food on it, being pretty sure that no one was coming in to eat it. And I sort of had a bit of a private moment to myself and was like, Ben, you really need to learn to cook a lot better, you know. And that was kind of a moment of catalyst where I was like, okay, I'm just going to learn how to do this properly. And it kind of went from there then, really. Yeah.
Okay, super. And just really reflecting on where we are as a sector. Obviously, it's an extremely difficult time as far as supply chain volatility, as far as cost of goods, energy, the list goes on and on. When you reflect and look not only at your own business, but the sector wide, what do you think that we need to do as a sector to kind of sustain the industry as an attractive place to work and to ultimately make it an attractive industry? What is it that you think that we need to collectively do?
So I think two things. I think firstly, we need to focus on innovation, in my view. So I think that the answer to, we've got rising cost pressures, so and people that we're serving food to, they've got rising cost pressures at home. So that's not a great picture. So what we can't do is sort of sit in the middle of those problems without looking either of them in the eye. So we've got rising cost pressures. Let's be more innovative with our supply chain. Let's if it's more expensive to import tomatoes, let's grow them here or not use a tomato, you know. Let's be more innovative with our menus. Let's create value and sales more, you know. Let's create more excitement in our things. I have a personal thing where I really dislike it when restaurants do a smaller version of themselves during quieter times, because I always think, don't do a small menu when you're quiet. That's when you should do your best menu, you know. Let's be on the front foot with creating value, being innovative with our supply chain and innovative with creating sales. That will make overall the picture more attractive to both guests and team. And then I'd say the second thing is there's obviously a huge amount of work to be done in terms of representation, diversity, creating a welcoming, high quality working environments that people want to be in. On the other hand, though, hospitality is almost uniquely meritocratic in the sense that if you're good at it, there's nothing stopping you get after it. That's not true of a lot of industries that people think of as, you know, nice industries. You show me an architect's office, people will start coming in with no qualifications and getting to the top of the business. You know, that's not going to happen. So I think there's a lot more glass ceilings in other industries that comparatively can be less rewarding, you know. I think the great thing about hospitality is this sense of opportunity for people. If you want to do it, if you want to do the work and you're prepared to put the work in and you're lucky and talented, then you get there. Whereas, and that was a real thing for me actually, because I moved from doing things in like music and art where it just wasn't going to happen, right? You know, it just wasn't, no matter what I did, if I didn't have the money up front, family connections, it just wasn't going to happen. So that's a real positive for the restaurant industry, you know. So I do, let's focus on what we're good at as well.
Yeah, sure. Super. And is there anything that you're excited about for the future within the industry?
So I do think that we are seeing it's difficult to open a restaurant, certainly in central London. It's difficult to open a restaurant now. It's expensive, and it's hard to see how new ideas are going to get in there. But they are coming. You can already see a sort of new generation, which is firstly, they've learned a lot in terms of how to, the food in the cooking and quality of restaurateuring in this country is at, I think, a very high level compared with a lot of the other major cities in the world. We've benefited a massive amount from having people coming from all over the world to come cook here and open restaurants and share ideas. It's quite normal. It's quite normal to be at a small restaurant with chefs from New York coming to cook, for example. 10 years ago, that would have been quite unusual. So we've got quite a vibrant scene in terms of ideas and energy. So that's I feel like excited about this sort of new generation, and I feel like we've got a lot of skilled people with bright ideas just waiting for the kind of stars to align, for the properties to be available and the loans to be available, basically. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Super. Well, we have come to the end of the main questions. We've just got a little quick fire round, just so that the viewers can just better understand who you are as a person, a bit more about you. And so I've got 6 questions. The first is, what's your favorite smell?
Oh, I did see these questions and I haven't thought of the answers, Lorraine. So it's going to be from the hip, I'm afraid. So, what's my favorite smell? I'm going to say, do you know what I love actually is toasted rice powder, which is something from the northeast of Thailand. They put on a lot of the food there. You toast dry rice, grind it into a powder, and it almost gives you the sort of homely smell of like fresh baked bread as an equivalent to that. And it's something that I really, you can never quite get it right here. And it's really located in my mind for trying to find it again. Yeah.
Okay, nice. What's your favorite season of the year?
Well, it's interesting. I was just in a meeting yesterday with Song Soo, who runs the sourcing and development for us. And we were talking about spring. She made the point that spring isn't really spring anymore. So because of global warming, well, the way the climate's changed here, spring doesn't happen in the same way. So we're actually in a moment now where we're coming into spring and there's nothing really in the farms. So I would say spring as a climate, but I think I'm probably going to have to go now summer, just because of the produce and quality of what you can eat. Yeah.
Favorite word?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, love.
Yeah.
Favorite ingredient?
My favorite ingredient to cook with is wild sea bass. Yeah, just amazing fish. I really think with fish, when you get that delivery, it's the most exciting delivery in the kitchen, because you open the box and you can still feel it's like sort of wild energy from the sea. It still feels like when you yeah.
What's your favorite color?
Purple. Yeah.
Favorite drink?
I like whiskey and soda.
Not interesting. Okay. A particular whiskey?
No, I don't mind cheap whiskey and soda. Lots of ice. Yeah.
Okay. All right, brilliant. Well, we have come to the end of the interview. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining me. It's been a pleasure to speak with you as always. And I want to thank you all for tuning in to this week's Thursday Night Takeaway. And we will be back in 2 weeks today with another interview with a founder from the hospitality industry. And we will see you then. So take care. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.